It was supposed to be just another ride. Just a group of carefree bikers roaring down the highway, looking for adventure. But when they laughed at a scrappy street dog barking wildly near an old tunnel, everything changed. Moments later, the same dog began running with a purpose, in a direction that would reveal a truth so chilling, so unexpected, it silenced even the loudest among them. What could a barking dog possibly know that a group of tough men on roaring motorcycles didn't? We often think of courage in terms of humans, the soldiers, the firefighters, the leaders. But what if one of the bravest acts came from a creature no one respected, no one even noticed? This story is about how a ragged, unwanted dog, a stray dismissed by everyone, changed the lives of 5 bikers in one unforgettable evening. It begins in the outskirts of a forgotten town. One road, one pack of men, one barking dog, and a secret waiting beneath the surface for far too long. The engines roared like thunder through the sleepy roadside village of Larkspur, a place even GPS often skipped. A group of 5 bikers, part of a local club called the Iron Hounds, had taken a detour on their weekend ride, veering off the main highway in search of open roads, cold beer, and a little mischief. The leader of the group, Mason, tall, hard-eyed, and always the loudest, revved his engine as they entered a dirt trail between 2 abandoned warehouses. "Place looks dead," grumbled Ray, the youngest of the crew, adjusting his sunglasses. "That's the charm," Mason smirked. As they turned the bend, they spotted a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a dog. A mutt, really, skin stretched over bones, fur matted with dirt and grease. It stood its ground, barking like its life depended on it. "Out of the way, flea bag!" one of the bikers shouted, honking his horn. The dog didn't budge. It growled louder, its body trembling but firm. Mason laughed. "What's it doing? Guarding the gates of hell." The bikers chuckled, revving their engines and circling around it. Ray took out his phone, ready to post it online. "Street dog versus iron hounds," he joked. But then something changed. The dog turned and began running. Not away, but forward, barking and pausing every few steps as if urging them to follow. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. "Guys, it wants us to follow it," muttered Vince, the quietest in the group. "Follow a dog? You serious?" Mason scoffed, but the others hesitated. There was something in the dog's eyes. Not fear, not madness, but urgency. Curiosity and maybe a bit of guilt got the better of them. The engines roared to life again, but this time they trailed the dog. They followed it past the warehouses, through a break in a fence, and into a narrow path between thick woods. The air changed. The smell of oil and old tires was replaced with damp earth and something else. Something rotten. "Where the hell are we?" whispered Ray. "Feels like a setup," muttered another. The dog stopped near a broken chain-link gate. It barked, turned, and vanished into the shadows beyond. The bikers exchanged looks. "I'm going in," Vince said suddenly, dismounting his bike. "No way, man," Mason warned. "We're not getting dragged into some rabid dog's hideout." But curiosity had its claws in them now. They all followed. What they found next made their blood run cold. Beyond the gate was an old, crumbling structure, maybe once a storage unit or shelter. The walls were smeared with graffiti, but it was what was inside that stole their breath. Drawings. Hundreds of childlike drawings pinned or taped along the damp walls. Each sketch, done in crayon or pencil, featured the same thing. A child standing with a dark, shadowy figure looming behind them. Some were smiling, others were crying. In the corner of every single page, a symbol of a bridge. "The hell is this?" murmured Ray, stepping back. Vince knelt near one drawing, his hands shaking. These aren't just doodles. No one's been here in years, another whispered. Why would a dog bring us here? Suddenly the dog barked again. From deeper inside, they followed. Through another door, they entered a room that smelled of rust and mildew. A makeshift bed, torn sheets, a pile of old shoes, small ones, children's shoes. No one spoke. The truth was slowly wrapping its fingers around their throats. The dog stood near a collapsed portion of the floor. It barked again one final time before sitting down. Its job done. Mason's face was pale. What the hell is this place? Suddenly, sirens wailed in the distance. Ray had quietly called the police. I thought we'd need them. And he was right. The discovery led to a sealed-off investigation. An unsolved case. And a past the town tried to forget. All because of a dog. A dog they mocked. A dog they didn't understand. As the sirens pierced the night air, the group stood frozen, unsure whether to flee or face what they had stepped into. Mason, once confident and mocking, now looked shaken. His fingers twitched on his leather gloves as if trying to grip onto something real, something sane. The stray dog sat solemnly beside the pile of tiny shoes, staring directly at the men. No growling, no barking now, just silence, deep and knowing. Moments later, red and blue lights flickered through the trees. 2 police cruisers pulled up to the broken gate, headlights slicing through the dark. Officers stepped out, flashlights sweeping over the bikers and the crumbling building behind them. "You boys want to explain why you're out here?" asked Officer Jacobs, hand on his holster. Ray stepped forward. "The dog, it brought us here. We didn't plan any of this." Jacobs raised an eyebrow. "The dog?" Another officer, Officer Miles, approached the structure and peered inside. Within seconds, his light hit the crayon-covered walls. He froze. "Jacobs?" he called, voice tight with tension. The other officer joined him. "Holy, get back up. Now." While the officers radioed for reinforcements, Mason backed up and grabbed Ray's arm. "We need to talk." They stepped away from the group. "Why didn't we just leave?" Mason hissed. "Now we're involved." Ray looked at him, confused. "Involved? We found something real. This matters." Mason shook his head. "Doesn't mean we need to go down with it. If we didn't touch anything." Before he could finish, the dog growled. It had silently approached them and now stood beside Ray, low and watchful, eyes narrowed at Mason. Mason instinctively stepped back. "What is it with this dog?" he muttered. Hours passed. More police arrived. A forensic team began carefully examining the structure. Crime scene tape was drawn. The bikers were separated for questioning. What the investigators discovered stunned them. Blood traces, decaying items buried beneath the floorboards, and fingerprints. Some of them matched to a long-dead child protection officer who disappeared over a decade ago. And then came the biggest twist. Inside one of the walls, hidden behind the sheetrock, they found a box. Inside it, more drawings, but these had names. First names, dates, and a photo. A group photo of children in front of a rickety wooden bridge, barely standing. One boy had circled eyes, drawn over in black crayon. Behind him stood a tall, thin man in a dark trench coat, blurry and haunting. The same symbol of the bridge was etched into the corner. Back at the station, Officer Jacobs pulled the group aside. "You all may have just cracked open a case that's been cold for 12 years, he said grimly. "We're coordinating with missing persons units from 3 counties. That cabin may have been a drop-off site." "A drop-off?" Ray asked. "You mean For kids? Jacobs nodded slowly. Someone lured or took kids there. Maybe more than one person. The drawings are messages, or maybe cries for help. He hesitated, then asked, "You said the dog led you there?" Vince spoke up this time. "Yeah, wouldn't let us pass at first. Then barked and ran until we followed." Jacobs leaned back, deep in thought. "Thing is, this case isn't new to us. There were rumors about that place. Locals spoke of a watchdog near the woods. We thought it was just superstition." "You mean the same dog?" asked another biker. Jacobs shrugged. "Could be, or its offspring. But either way, someone, or something, wanted you to find that place tonight." The bikers were released later that morning. Exhausted, dazed, changed. Back on the open road, the group stopped their bikes near a gas station just outside of town. The dog had followed them the whole way, never straying more than a few feet from Vince. He knelt beside it. You saved those kids. Or at least their stories." The dog rested its head on Vince's knee. They didn't laugh at it anymore. They didn't laugh at anything. Days passed. The media got wind of the story. "Bikers discover forgotten crimes thanks to mysterious dog," read one headline. The image of the dog, ears tattered, eyes intense, spread online. People started calling it Ghost, the silent protector. Some claimed it had been seen near the bridge symbol years ago. Others believed it was the spirit of a lost child returned to expose the truth. But for the bikers, it didn't matter what the world believed. They had seen enough to know it was real. 1 week later, Mason knocked on Vince's door. "I can't stop thinking about it," he admitted. "The dog, the drawings, that place." Vince nodded. "I keep seeing the bridge symbol. Everywhere. It's burned into my head." Then came a call. From Officer Jacobs. "Meet me near Old Mill Bridge. You need to see this." The symbol had returned, etched freshly into the wood of the bridge's entrance. The same symbol, but no one had touched it, except maybe Ghost. The group reconvened in front of the Old Mill Bridge. Morning mist hovered low as the river below churned, murky and fast. Vince arrived first, Ghost walking silently at his side. The others followed, all quieter than usual, their usual swagger replaced with wary alertness. Officer Jacobs stood just beyond the police tape. He motioned them over and pointed at the fresh etching. Clear as day, carved deep into the rotting wood. The same bridge symbol from the crayon drawings. No tools were left behind. No fingerprints. No sign of forced entry or trespassing. "Nobody's been near this bridge in years," Jacobs said. "Not legally, anyway. But this showed up last night." The silence that followed was almost reverent. No one had answers. And Ghost? He sat down beside the bridge and began to whine. That night, Vince couldn't sleep. He kept hearing the sound of the dog whining, and that eerie creak of the bridge under his boots. He got out of bed and scribbled the symbol onto a piece of paper, then searched it online. He stumbled upon a local forum about urban legends. Buried deep in the comments of a 12-year-old post, someone had written, "The bridge sees all. The watcher waits for the truth to be told. Children whisper from the trees." Vince leaned back, heart pounding. Could it be more than just crimes? Could something supernatural be involved? The next day, Mason burst into Ray's garage holding an old newspaper. "I found this while going through my uncle's attic," he said breathlessly. "Look," the headline read, "Boy missing after birthday party near Old Mill Bridge." The date, 13 years ago. Below was a photo of a boy smiling nervously. And in the corner of the image, that same symbol, on a balloon. "They say he wandered off," Mason continued. His parents said a dog was barking like crazy, trying to stop him. They ignored it. Ray's eyes widened. Was it Ghost? Mason nodded. Or one just like him. Suddenly, they heard a growl from outside. Ghost stood at the garage entrance, tail stiff, eyes locked toward the woods behind them. They followed the dog without hesitation. It led them back to the edge of the forest, but this time to a different trail. One none of them had noticed before. The air grew colder. The trees twisted inward, branches clawing at the sky. About 20 minutes in, they found another shack, smaller, more broken down. Ghost stopped and pawed at the door. Inside was another chilling discovery. This one was different. Not drawings, but tapes. Old VHS tapes stacked in boxes, covered in dust and mold. Each labeled with a date and initials. Vince picked one up. JP 2011. He swallowed hard. We need to call Jacobs. Back at the station, the police converted one of the tapes. What played on the monitor left everyone breathless. Grainy footage showed a dimly lit room. Children's voices murmured softly. A man's silhouette loomed in the background, watching, never speaking. The same symbol was carved into the wall behind them. Jacobs slammed his hand on the desk. We're dealing with someone who documented his crimes. Maybe more than one person. This was systematic. He turned to the bikers. This is no longer just an abandoned shack or a creepy dog. This is a crime scene of massive proportions. Ray whispered, "What if we hadn't followed Ghost?" Vince looked at the screen. Then they'd still be forgotten. The tapes kept coming. Another cabin. Then another. Each hidden in remote parts of the forest, all connected by trails only someone or something with deep knowledge of the land could navigate. Each time Ghost led them, and each time the bridge symbol was there. By the third tape, the FBI was called in. They started constructing a full map, piecing together the pattern. It formed a network, all circling around the old mill bridge. The symbol wasn't just a mark. It was a code, a trail, a grave map. And Ghost? He remembered them all. But the deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. One night, as the group stayed in a ranger's cabin near the latest site, Ghost started barking wildly. The power went out. In the distance, flashlights flickered, but they weren't police. Unknown figures moved just beyond the tree-line. Mason grabbed a bat. Vince picked up a flare. They weren't alone anymore. Whoever had orchestrated the horrors years ago hadn't disappeared. They'd been watching, waiting. The bikers weren't just accidental heroes anymore. They were targets. The wind howled through the forest like a warning. Inside the ranger's cabin, the bikers sat in a circle with Officer Jacobs, his service pistol placed on the table. The power had been cut. Ghost growled lowly at the door. Outside, faint crunches of footsteps moved through the leaves. Too many to count. "They're watching us," Mason whispered. Ray tightened his grip on a baseball bat. "Then let's give them a show." Suddenly, Ghost let out a sharp bark and bolted toward the back exit, scratching at it furiously. Vince rushed to open the door. Ghost didn't run far, just far enough to get them moving. The bikers and Jacobs followed. Ghost led them not to another shack, but to a buried hatch in the forest floor. Half covered in vines and dirt, it looked like nothing. But as they pulled it open, a cold gust of air and the faint sound of humming rose from the darkness below. "What the hell is this?" Jacobs murmured. They descended into what looked like a bunker. Concrete walls, thick metal doors. Fluorescent lights flickered weakly overhead. On one wall, a timeline had been sketched in marker. Names, dates, crossed out lines, and in the center, the bridge symbol. Beside it, photographs. Children. Notes. Maps. Ray stepped back, sick to his stomach. This isn't just one person. This was a whole operation. Suddenly, a door slammed shut upstairs. They weren't alone. They moved deeper into the bunker. In one room, they found dozens of locked cabinets. One of them was left slightly open. Inside were recent photos of the bikers, taken from the woods. Their bikes, their homes, their families. Someone had been tracking them since the night they followed Ghost. Officer Jacobs grabbed his radio. "We need backup. Full sweep. Code red." "I repeat, code red." No response. Vince tried to text. No signal. The humming sound grew louder. Ghost froze. His ears stood upright. A light snapped on at the end of the hallway. Then a voice echoed from a speaker above. "You shouldn't have followed the dog." They ran. Not out of fear, but to find the source of the voice. Ray kicked down a rusted door, revealing a room with computers, all running on backup generators. On screen, CCTV footage. Dozens of live feeds showing parts of the forest, the bridge, even the town. "This guy's been watching the town for years," Mason whispered. Vince found an old, faded ID badge on the desk. Dr. Owen Mercer, Behavioral Research Unit. A government seal below it. "Wait," Vince said. Was this guy FBI? Jacob's face went pale. This wasn't just criminal. It was covered up. They grabbed what they could and ran, straight back through the woods. Ghost led the way, weaving around traps and fallen branches with uncanny precision. Back at the cabin, the attackers were gone, but so were the FBI files, the tapes. Even the bridge etching had been scrubbed clean. It was a full erasure, but they had the photos, the computers, the badge, and Ghost. The story made national news, not just because of the evidence, but because of how it was discovered. A group of bikers who teased a dog ended up exposing a government-linked cover-up of child disappearances going back 2 decades. Ghost was honored as a local hero and then later by national rescue organizations. He was adopted by Vince and wore a new tag that simply read, "Protector." But not everything had been tied up. Weeks later, Ray received a small package at his shop. No return address. Inside, a single drawing. Crayons. A child's sketch of 5 bikers. And Ghost. And in the corner, the bridge symbol. Fresh. Still warm. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, surprised you, or made you think twice about street dogs and second chances, please consider giving it a like, sharing it with a friend, and subscribing for more emotional, suspenseful stories like this one. Your support helps us keep uncovering tales that touch hearts and stir the soul.